groups. So these are groups from the United States that come to the mission and offer their services. Medical groups go out in the communities and work with the health promoters. They developed, we have an app that they all use so that they can do electronic medical records. So you might set up a clinic in a room like this, and they can set up an internet within the room. You're not connected to the internet, but you have access to information within the room. And so any visiting provider who's got any kind of smartphone or tablet can access the medical records of anybody who comes in to that clinic. And so we work in these 16 different communities, but the whole idea is to provide continuity of care by making sure that we're tracking what people are getting diagnosed with, what they're getting prescribed, and doing any necessary follow-up care to that. So that's a huge piece of what makes us successful, because the dirty little secret of short-term medical missions is that if you just bring a group into a community, drop them in there, have them treat people and leave, the ultimate result of that is probably worse care for the people involved. Because you can't give somebody who's got, say, high blood pressure medication for 3 months, leave, and then think they're going to be better off. You have to provide continuity of care, which is the hardest thing to do in communities like this where there is no provider there all the time. So by bringing providers in and making sure they're all using the same basic formulary, the same basic diagnoses, we can provide continuity of care even though the providers might be different each time.
What kind of groups or teams come in, and from where? From
all over the place. So we have groups that'll come from universities. We'll have groups that'll be physicians with medical students. The ratios of those are the same as they would be in the United States. You don't get to come and play doctor. If you're a medical student, you have to be supervised by a physician in the same way that you would in the United States. But we get them they come from clinics, they come from universities, they come from medical schools.
This is from all over?
From all over.
All over the world, you say?
Well, all over the States. We have
most of the United States. Okay.
Yeah, we have groups that come to San Lucas from 25 different states in the U.S. I mean, across all of our programs.
Okay.
How about how many people is it? Like it says 15 groups, about how many total?
Typically, medical groups are 12 to 15. Depending. Okay. We have some groups that'll bring dentists, surgeons, and physicians. So they're working in the dentists and the physicians are working in the community, surgeons work in the clinic. We are one of 2 clinics in the entire country of Guatemala that do really complicated orthopedic surgeries, foot surgeries. It's really remarkable. Some of it's pretty remarkable work. With medical care, just like with any other kind of technology, you have to use appropriate technology. You have to make sure that what you're doing is sustainable and that you're not doing more harm than good. So you have to make sure that you have monitoring of aftercare and you have that in place before you do it, because you just can't come in, do a complicated surgery, leave, and hope everything goes well. You have to really provide for what's the aftercare look like. And how do you make sure that you're able to do follow-up there? We have a construction program. We build 3 different kinds of houses. This is an example of a block house that we build. Block houses cost about $12,000. They're 540 square feet, so not massively huge by our standards, but perfectly adequate. And for most of the folks we build these for, a huge, huge improvement over what they had. We only build block houses when people have title to the land, because you need to make sure that nobody's going to come in and say, hey, this is my land, thanks for the nice house. And that's only happened once, but we need to make sure that they have a pretty solid title. Which, as you can imagine, is an issue. So last year we did 20, this year we'll do probably 20 or so block houses. We do what are called hybrid houses, which are essentially, think of 4 or 5 courses a block and then wood above that. Those cost about $3,500, and we built 25 last year, we'll probably build about 50 this year. Those will do not only if you have title to the land, but if we can get a long-term agreement from the land owner, we'll build those rental land as well. And then the third type of house we built are just simple wooden houses, really basic. And they cost about $1,700. We built 40 last year. We'll build about 40 or so this year. Our goal this year is 108 units of housing across all three types. All of the homes come with concrete floors. They all come with fuel-efficient stoves. And we ask if families can contribute, usually materials, sand, gravel, things like that. We don't require it, and there are no mortgages involved with these at all. That's an example of a wooden house. The other thing we do is have a program called Charity with Dignity, which is a direct assistance, monthly assistance that we provide to mostly the most vulnerable people, mostly elderly. It's not a huge part of our work, but it's an important piece to kind of get things open, get people through. And then we have a visitors program. So last year we had over 1,400 people come visit the mission. These are groups from all over the place. We said 25 different states. They might be high school groups, church groups, 10, 12, 15 people, and university groups. And you really come to learn about the programming, you come to do some work. But this is always the struggle. So we were at Feed My Starving Children.
Mm-hmm.
Feed My Starving Children does not need us to pack food for them. It actually costs them more money to have us volunteer to pack food for Feed My Starving Children than it would for them to have an assembly line to pack food. So the reason we go to Feed My Starving Children is not to help out the organization, even though for some of us you think that's why you're there. Well, the real reason you're there is to get engaged with the organization. Because you go there, you have some fun, you feel like, hey, I did something good, this was cool, I'll give these guys money. So that the whole, and I'm not being cynical about this, this is how you have to get people involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we could all call into church on Sunday too, right? You know, but the reason we come here is to get engaged, you know, because this is a community. The reason Feed My Starving Children wants you to come and pack food is to create community so that you you're engaged with the programming, you learn about what's going on. The reason we have people come to San Lucas is not because if you don't come, the houses won't get built. The houses will still get built as long as we have funding to build houses. But if you come to San Lucas and you see what's going on and you build relationships with people and then you get connected, you're more likely to support the organization, and then the work can continue. So the whole idea that, you know, if I'm not here carrying concrete from point A to point B, that none of this is going to happen, is not the way it works. But if you're not there, you don't really see what's going on, and you don't build relationships with people, and you don't get engaged.
You're the only person who's ever been honest about this, Bill.
Well, I say it because I've made those mistakes, and I've done that, and now, you know, what I see happen is like, we want people, because what'll happen is you get somebody who's there, look, I'm here, I want to work 18 hours a day. And it's like, well, okay, we actually don't want you to do that, because our employees have to work day after day after day, and if you're working 18 hours a day with them, you're driving them into the ground. But we also want you to take a step back, and we want you to learn about the culture, and we want you to learn about what's going on here. I mean, what I tell people in theological language is, we want you to come to San Lucas and ask, what is God doing here? What is God already doing here? And how can I be a part of it? And that requires you to kind of stop and listen and engage with people. And the work is an excuse to build those relationships. Mm-hmm. So this is an absolute essential part of our program, but not for the reasons that most people think. It's not because if 1,400 people come, we won't build houses. It's because if 1,400 people come, we won't have people seeing what's going on, and they feel called to support it. And we had,